Welcome, everyone, to the ICSS Sunday Morning Marxist Forum. My name is Alan Miller, and I'm a member of the Program Committee for ICSS Sunday Morning Sessions. We're based in Oakland, California, in the San Francisco Bay Area, USA, and our weekly programs are online via Zoom every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. Pacific Time. You can sign up at our website, icssmarks.org. That's icssmarks.org to receive weekly email announcements for our Sunday sessions. Our session today, Internal Disintegration Prevents Turkey's Regional Aspirations, focuses on the domestic class struggle in Turkey and its role in recent events in Syria and Western Asia. Our speaker, Mehmet Bayram, is a member of the ICSS Program Committee, a journalist, author, and translator who is currently working on a book project to document the memoirs of leftists who lived through the 1980 fascist military coup in Turkey. Welcome, everyone, to the Sunday Morning Marxist Forum. So, Mehmet, welcome to you, too.
Thank you very much, Alan. I'll share my screen. Is this better still?
Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. So in last time we met about a month ago or so, something had happened and I wanted to carry on with that. That was a groundbreaking thing that happened in Turkey. The Turkish Nazi Party, the Grey Wolves, had approached the leader, the guerrilla leader of the Kurds, to invite him to speak in the assembly. And I had gone into the contradictions in Turkey, especially the corruption, and how being tied to imperialism and capitalism had destroyed anything and everything that the Turks believed in, the state and so on and so forth. But it had started changing. The Turkish history had started changing. And today I want to continue with that. But like I said previously, the theme of the presentation changed several times. And so I hope I can capture what is going on, the relationship between Syria, Turkey, the regional powers, and the internal contradictions that seem to determine whether the aspirations of these countries can be done or not. So I start with a quotation from the manifesto that says that all that is solid melts into air, all that is holy is profaned, and man is at last compelled to face with sober senses his real conditions of life and his relations with his kind. I think that we are seeing what we are seeing in today, and maybe in other countries, with the situation of imperialism, calls for this as being the explainer of what is happening. There's a professor that wrote on the Armenian genocide, and he observes that many taboo subjects in Turkey are being disassembled now, and they are disbanded. Especially the subject of talking about Ataturk. Can you criticize or even question him? Or the Cyprus issue, the Armenian, the Kurdish issue. These were completely taboo. You could not talk about them. Talking will either get you killed or be imprisoned. But the changes are happening, and now we are kind of ready to talk about these, although with still very high risk. The subjects that I'm going to be talking today are still illegal in Turkey, and talking about that will get you to prison. And especially if you are talking about these outside the country, then your sentence is like 3 times what you would get in Turkey. So let's start with the part one, the Kurdish resistance against Turkish fascism. The reason I'm saying this is that my claim is that the Turkish issue lies at the very base of the contradictions and handicap of Turkey as it aspires to to gain ground, especially in Syria. The Turkey is trying to squeeze itself into the scene of Middle East, but the handicap, the Kurdish issue, will not allow it to. Back in recent history, the Turkey tried a so-called opening solution process, an opening to talk to the Kurds, which was illegal, by the way, even for the government to even talk to them. But let's see how this went, and let's see how what the results were. And today, like I mentioned in the previous presentation, again, an opening, a dialogue between the Kurds and the Turks are open. And whether it holds any possibility or any potential in solving anything, and we need to discuss what that thing is. What is the solution? What are people trying to achieve? Turkey found itself unable to cope with the Kurdish Marxist-Leninist uprising, the PKK, which defines itself as Marxist-Leninist. And so in the entire 1990s and 20s, it was a bloodbath. And more than 40,000 people died. And today the estimate is being said about 150,000, actually. It was underestimated. So a lot of people, millions of people were displaced, and the entire eastern province of Turkey was emptied, completely emptied. They were forced by gunpoint to just go, just leave, go wherever you like. Big metropoles just experienced a shock of millions of people coming to live there. If they had relatives, maybe 12, 15, 20 people started living in homes and everything. But this devastated the Turkish economy that we still feel today. Turkey, from an agricultural country, which was mostly in the east, has just totally disassembled that. And today, Turkey is importing meat. And just a couple of days ago, I heard that now it's importing vegetables. So this is the loss that Turkey brought over. Now, in the struggle, Öcalan was allowed to go to Syria and stay there and establish a camp. Many leftists, guerrillas, went there, and for the first time, especially coming from an, like an agrarian place, a feudal place where religion and especially, Muslim religion was very strict. A new army emerged, mostly in Syria, but in Turkey as well, with Peshmergas, that's the guerrilla that the Kurds call them. And they established a women's army. Just imagine being from a village that you were not even allowed to go outside your home for the women I'm talking about, escaping this situation and going and joining an army in another country and being trained to fight, and in women's issues, feminism, what the revolution is all about in Marxist Leninism, and so on and so forth. So the Kurds were able to stay in Syria because of the situation in Syria. Syria went through the same development structures that Turkey went through, a late capitalism, a late development. And in this, what does this mean, late development? It means that capitalism was established very late, which means that the capitalist class by itself had not completed its own revolution. And so in its development phase in Syria as well as in Turkey, the state took over the responsibility of developing capitalism. That's very interesting. When you have no capitalism, you have feudalism, and you want to develop capitalism so that you can integrate into imperialism, the fashion of the day in 1900s, then you needed to develop capitalism. And since you did not have a capitalist class that could take this task. It was the government that tried to do this. So the capitalist class in Syria as well was very weak. So that allowed Hafez al-Assad to play with socialism, which could be debated and should be debated whether it was socialism or not. This state-led capitalist development, just like in Turkey. And this allowed him to play both sides, both Soviet Union and United States, but he was keen on trying to preserve his sovereignty and independence because remember, back in 1960s or so, it was still a hope that a country, or so-called its national bourgeoisie, could maybe take a little enclave here and then develop it with the capitalist class. And so he was keen on the sovereignty and his independence, and he did not listen to his weak capitalist class so much, which allowed revolutionaries to be in Syria from Turkey, and that also allowed him to have a little say in negotiations with Turkey, and also to put a pressure on Turkey because the guerrillas were situated there. That changed around 1998 with the development of the capitalist class putting more pressure on the government to lean and to go more towards imperialism and to capitalism. It didn't look good to have a Marxist-Leninist guerrilla organization in your land. And so Abdullah Öcalan, the leader of the PKK, was thrown out of Syria. At the same time, just around the same year, the PFLP from Palestine that enjoyed a little bit support the same way in Syria, that was also kicked out. Now, Syria was turning towards imperialism with its full face. And that was maybe a death knell for Abdullah Öcalan. So in the stalemate that followed, there were a lot of people being killed, the villages being burned and everything. PKK declared a unilateral ceasefire. They said, we'll put down the arms. All we want is just to sit down and talk. But Turkey rejected this. And so, and actually raised its attacks because Turkey took this as a weakness on the side of the guerrilla. And so they said, this is our chance, let's finish them off, and so on and so forth. The same thing today is being said. The interior minister of Turkey claims that there is like about only 30 guerrillas left in the world for PKK, and they know their shoe sizes. That's how. But for the last 30, 40 years, we've heard exactly the same things. So after 2011, the clashes really peaked, and a lot of people were killed. But in 2012, very unexpectedly, Erdogan announced that secretly the government had been talking to Öcalan in prison, in his İmralı prison. That's an isolated island prison in the sea, and it's at the Turkish government's permission if anybody could go and see or talk to him. And so but during even the negotiations, Turkey escalated its attacks, like I have it there in Paris. 3 peace advocate women were ambushed and killed in their home, and many other attacks. I'm not going to go into other details, but one of the attacks that happened was a policeman and 2 policemen and a doctor was killed in Turkey. And Turkey immediately said that it was the PKK attacking and so on and so forth. It turned out to be a lie, and anyway. But the important thing is that Öcalan came back from this with a letter. And in his letter, he said that he was very conciliatory. He wanted Turkey to understand that his position was not a violent one, and he was ready to sit down and talk with Turkey. And he claimed that he could control the guerrilla, which is somewhat true or not. We're going to see on that one. He based his reconciliation with the fascist government as an urgent intervention is a requirement of our religious beliefs, political and moral responsibility. Remember that he's a Marxist-Leninist. PKK then decided after Öcalan's letter that they are going to pull all the fighters from Turkey into Iraq. They actually went to a mountain called Candle Mountain, which they are still situated in, and the whole administration of the PKK and many YPG in Syria today is being done from that mountain. Anyway, so in this period, Öcalan said, living in peace and brotherhood as a democratic society with a democratic identity based on free and equal constitutional citizenship with the Republic of Turkey. That's what he wanted. So we are overcoming the conflict-filled past of the 90-year history of the Republic and walking towards a future built with the criteria of true peace and universal democracy. So he also said, we should know that the latest tyranny caused by the imperialist powers that do not give up their ambitions over the Middle East has emerged in the form of ISIS. This organization, which challenges the very meaning of barbarism, has carried out savage massacres against the people and beliefs of the region, especially Kurds, Turkmens, Arabs, Yazidis, and Assyrian Syriacs, without distinguishing between women and children. So he's now showing that ISIS is the imperialism is the problem, that Kurds and Turks are not able to get together. So Turkey passed a law that's for the providing peace and tranquility after his letter, of course, seeing that he's promising a peace understanding between Turkey and Kurds. So suddenly the Turks and Kurds became very good friends. And Turkey promised to provide social, cultural, and educational infrastructure, and to provide provisions for any guerrilla who decided to abandon arms, laid his arms down, and submitted to the Turkish state, of course. And information about this whole process was going to be public knowledge. Turkish state would do that. In the picture, you see there's two Kurdish singers. One was outside the Turkey because he was being sought by Turkey, the one in the traditional dress. The other one is a very popular singer, but both Kurdish. And the Kurds started supporting the fascist state. But Erdogan was still in prison. That was that was something you cannot discuss. He was there, and the nationalists, the chauvinists, the gray wolves wanted him hung right then and there. So the Erdogan said that we've been waiting for this, and but cracks started to happen in the Kurdish movement because the legal party, the HDP then, but now it changed its name because every year Turkey shuts down the party, the legal party, accuses them of collaborating with the guerrilla, and then so they have to form a new party with a new name and so on and so forth. So Demirtas said that with the policies the government is implementing, it does not give the slightest hope. It does not come close to peace. Well, he's basing this pessimism on the history that Öcalan says that for 90 years, we have to come together, we are kumbaya, so on and so forth. But the Demirtas says, no, there is no hope. Why are we trying to give hope when there is none? Now then, Mustafa Karasu, you see him in the middle on the bottom, says, if the government is serious, it should let us meet with Öcalan. He's one of the commanders in the Candle Mountains. And Turkey won't allow anybody to see Öcalan. It's only with a Turkish permission that they could go. And recently, we are going to come to that, but for about 10 years, Öcalan had been kept in isolation. His lawyers were not allowed. His family was not allowed because the Turkish government doesn't allow it. So anyway, the guerrilla upper echelons are saying, hey, let's meet with him, because there is skepticism that any decision made by Öcalan is actually suspicious. He's in the hand of the enemy. He's imprisoned. He will say whatever the government is going to tell him. So that brings up questions. But the problem here is that if the movements base themselves on individuals that could be imprisoned or not, then that person becomes a symbol. And that symbol may be a unifying symbol, a person that unifies everybody, but it also has risks like this, where the one man decides one day that they are going to lay arms or start fighting again or join the enemy. So this is what is happening. So the PKK commanders are saying, we don't know what's going on. Should we listen to him or not? But they can't refuse him because he has become a symbol of all the Kurds, Syrian, Iraqi, Turkish, even Iranians, and so on and so forth. And so we see that Bayık also said the laying down of weapons can only be decided at a Congress that Öcalan will personally attend. In other words, such a decision will not be announced before Öcalan is released. So they are putting the Öcalan's release, which is a no-go. So, but looking at Öcalan, his Marxist-Leninist past shows that he had been trying to join forces with the fascist Turkish state, and in such embarrassing declarations, such as he wanted to be, if Turkey allowed him to, meaning that the guerrillas and the Kurdish people would be at the front lines fighting in the east. That's very interesting, that fighting in the east part, because in modern Turkey, as it integrates into imperialism, the East is seen as the enemy. We are going to come to that, how Turks hated the Arabs and the Kurds and everything. But Öcalan says, no, let me be the leader to attack the East. Anyway, that was very interesting that he wants to be the soldier for Turkey. Then the HDP party challenged then Prime Minister Erdogan, and Selahattin Demirtas, its leader, said, Mr. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, we will not make you the president. We will not make you the president. We will not make you the president. Erdogan had changed the status of Turkey, wanted to change the status from from a prime ministers and parliamentary regime to like a one-man presidential system, not like the United States. That's what he was claiming, but what he wanted to do was a complete one-man dictatorial system. And Demirtas said, we will not make you president. So he had said no votes, no peace, and Demirtas said, reminding us that if that's the case, we won't let you become president either. So there is a problem in this national movement, which I think is open for debate. What to do? That's what we're going to come to towards the end, is that should we, just because it's a national movement, should we follow the national bourgeoisie, so-called national bourgeoisie's ideology in the struggle for freedom and liberation, or should we take a working class perspective? Kurds have been very, they don't have a unified view on this. As other societies, you have classes, and in those societies, each class has its own class perspective, class interest. So the liberation movement in Turkey, especially in Turkey, was that it was led by the working class, peasant kids and leaders, but it was fed by the national bourgeoisie of the Kurds. So whose ideology is going to lead this struggle? So the other question comes in, let's say that they want independence, they want autonomy. Is this new country, will this new country be able to survive in the age of imperialism? So all these questions come in: dependency, sovereignty. Will they be able to achieve a real sovereignty where the Kurdish capitalists are able to exploit their own labor force and enrich themselves? So in this integration side, HDP even announced that they did not only represent the Kurds, but they represented Turkey, which was a good move because Turks hated them for being Kurdish nationalists. But this time now they are there fighting for democracy, fighting for the democratic rights, women's rights, and all of those. So Öcalan claims to be a Marxist-Leninist, yet he follows and adores Murray Bookchin, an anarchist, but he also supports the fascist Turkish state. So the PKK organization is suspicious because he's in the hands, and Syrian forces, Syrian Kurds follow him, but they do have a relative independence. So again, the question comes in class analysis: whose ideology, which class's ideology should lead the national liberation movements? So while this process was going, suddenly Erdogan said enough is enough, and he kicked the table, as they say it, that they were negotiating. And Demirtas went into prison with completely trumped up charges. The irony is they are talking to the guerrillas. The Turkish government is talking to the guerrillas, the leader, what they call the baby killer leader of the guerrillas, but the Democratic Party, an open democratic, electoral party, the leader is sent to prison for supporting terrorism. Okay, so the taboos are being dismantled, and but the process is not as simple. It's not just like one day you dismantle everything. So the forces that that has grown throughout hundreds of years in that country still stay, and so we're gonna see if that's gonna work out or not. So again, we come to this taboos being, disappearing into thin air. What we need to say is that not so easily, not so fast. It takes time. So just like I mentioned in the beginning, 2 months ago, before Syria, that's important, just before Syria fell to the Islamofascists, in an unprecedented move, the fascist, racist, neo-Nazi party, the organized gangs of thugs and racist murderers of the Kurds and sworn enemies of the Kurdish nation proposed to bring Apo, that Abdullah Öcalan, to the Turkish National Assembly and allow him to address the nation. Suddenly, again, the Turks and the Kurds became brothers. Öcalan, and once again, has given his support with another letter to the Turkish regime in hopes of a democratic society, and most Kurds are following his lead. The analysis could differ from person to person, but if your analysis is that the Turkish state is a fascist state, don't hold your breath for a democratic society. Actually, I would venture out to say that things are going to go worse. Maybe for the Kurds, depending on whose force is being applied in Turkey, how much imperialism is going to tell Turkey to cool it. But apart from that, the conditions of the Turks and the Kurds and the Armenians and the Laz and the Jews and the Arabs in Turkey is going to go worse because of the crisis of Turkey being a capitalist and the client state of Israel with nothing in their hands to solve the issues that is brought on by these systems. So we have this. So part two, now we are coming. The same historical fault. Remember, Turkey wants to play with the big boys in the Middle East. It wants to have a say. Now, let's remember, maybe we'll remember it in a few slides down, is that Turkey prouds itself with Kemal Atatürk's, Mustafa Kemal's words that says, peace in the world, peace at home. This is the slogan. This is the chant that Turks show, that Turks love peace and that we are after no war, which is a complete lie. Reason being is that while Kemal Atatürk was saying this, the borders were being drawn of the modern Turkey. And although he changed it every day the borders would change to negotiate with the Western imperialists what the Turkish borders are going to be. Privately, to his commanders around him, he was saying that our borders are where they are able to stop us. So that's a very aggressive position, because he was an Ottoman soldier. And Ottomans always thought that they are the superior. They need to control the world, and the subjects that are around us, they are not going to believe that, okay, this is our natural borders and we'll just sit in here in peace. No. So there are many reasons why Turkey and Turkey has now entered Syria, annexing parts of it. But the fault lines are common between the two countries. And one of them is the Kurds, and the other one is the historical hatred of the Turks. But when I say Turks, I'm talking about the modern Turks, because Turkishness was invented around 1890s or so, but became official after 1923. So everybody was wondering what this Turkishness is. I'm a Turk, but yeah, what should I do? What is my, what? So anyway, together with that identity of being a Turk came the hatred against all the peoples of the East. All the peoples of the East. Because Turkey had decided one night that they were now European. They were white, lily white as milk, and the rest of the world was down and this and that. They all deserved, as one of the interior ministers in the early republic said, if you are not a Turk, you are just the slaves and like the very low down in our midst. So Syrians are subjects, Turks still think, and having lost the 85% of the land in the World War I, Turks mostly blame the Arabs for hitting us in the back or knifing us in the back with their joint support from Britain and France. And so that is still a wound that Turks have never closed. Turkey was born as a neo-colonial country in imperialism, and but Turkey lost 3 holy cities, and in 1917 Turkey was fighting on the side of Germany. And so the army was led by İsmet İnönü, and he lost. This is important because İnönü became the second president after Atatürk, after the Declaration of Independence, 1923. Then Jerusalem and Mecca and Baghdad were lost. 250,000 people lost at this. But the important thing is that Turks still believe that Kemal Atatürk is a genius, a military genius, that the whole world does nothing. Their entire days and lives are spent in admiring how a genius Mustafa Kemal Atatürk is. That's what they think. But then what you are seeing there, when he lost, he was the chief of the 7th Army. He lost so bad that he had to personally leave his army and flee, and which he was going to be executed for doing that. So anyway, The Kurds in the Middle East enjoyed historically a semi-autonomous position under Ottomans. And but their presence was not what you see in the map only. They have presence, mosques and everything in Mecca, even all the way down to Mecca, Damascus, and Gaza. They all had. In 1514, Alan, when the Ottomans conquered the Kurdish land, they were given autonomy, and so they enjoyed this. And in 1923, they still wanted to have this, so I'm going to pass this a little bit fast. In the Armenian genocide, the Turks used the Kurds as their henchmen, let's say, and they were complicit in the genocide. And but once Turkey established its, republic, all the promises that were given to Kurds were just forgotten immediately, just like that, because nations in that time meant religions in Turkey. That's what the understanding was. And Kurds were considered as our nation because they were Muslims. Then the Turkishness was invented. And so now a more division among the people, and Kurds did not par up to the level of the Turks. So immediately all the rights that were given to the Kurds were rescinded, and their autonomy just withered away, just finished right then and there. In the Eastern Reform Project compiled by İnönü, that second president, he forced Kurds to learn Turkish. Kurdish was banned. You couldn't say good morning to your mother at home in Kurdish. They were displaced again, like in 1990s. They were displaced from their homes. There was a mathematical calculation that the Turkish government did that would not allow more than 5% of these people in any town. So they had to be spread around the Turks, and Turks had to be the dominant race in their nation in there. So no schools. Actually, what they said was that let's not open schools in the East because they won't understand Turkish. Let's let them learn Turkish, and then we will. So they were not educated, and so on and so forth. So the Kurdish land has grown, but that brought problems to Kurds because when the land grows, then you start living in with others like the Armenians, the Arabs, the Assyrians, and so on and so forth. So it became a real complex issue. This is the Kurdish language in its development. There is still not a unified Kurdish language. A lot of people speak Kurmanji Sorani or, even Zazagorani. So the debate still continues whether, when you're publishing a Kurdish newspaper, in which language or which alphabet should be used. And so this is where the Kurds, face discrimination in all the four countries that the Kurdistan was divided into: Iran, Turkey, Syria, and Iraq. Turkey is the largest in the division, and so they are and also the most populous. So that's why it's kind of like what happens in the Turkish Kurdistan or the northern Kurdistan affects all the rest. So in Syria, the Kurds faced similar discrimination, but not like in Turkey. The Kurdish identity in Syria was not banned. In Turkey, it was banned. You could not be a Kurd. But in Syria, you were allowed to be a Kurd and everything. So they, even a prime minister, he was coming back from a military operation from Israel. So while he was passing, he just did a military coup and he became the prime minister briefly. So that shows that, the discrimination was not at that level. So three options that were left to the Kurds were either to join the Arab nationalism, forego all your Kurdish identity, follow the pan-Syrianism, the development of Syria, and to support the Communist Party. Now, communism did provide an alternative to the traditional lines. Separation between Arab nationalism and their identity, that's what the communists provided. And a distance from the clan tribe structure, which still bogs the Kurdish movement. That tribe structure is something that Turkey couldn't finish, didn't want to finish, and the structure in Syria, in Iran, Iraq, people move and act according to what their tribe does, and that also gives great power to those countries, Iran, Turkey, so on and so forth, because you buy one tribe leader, it means he brings 5,000 votes on the election day. Kurdish bourgeoisie was for strengthening their position inside Syria. So autonomy and independence didn't bode that well with the Kurdish bourgeoisie. Although the working class and identity politics, others wanted to have their own country, but the Kurdish bourgeoisie saw their class interest in staying in with Syria. So the Ba'ath ideology accepted them, but in 1962, they had a census in the Cizre district, close to the Turkish border, and they identified who the Kurds were, and they started identifying or classifying people as like Arab, Ajnabi, and non-registered. Ajnabi means non-Muslim. So those are actually still accepted in the Syrian government, but Kurds became non-registered, meaning this was even inferior to the Ajnabis, the non-Muslims, was that they could not hold land. They could not do inheritance. Even their marriage is so complicated. I read up, if an Ajnabi man marries a unregistered woman, or this, that, is married to an Arab, what happens to their, all of this, very complicated. But the bottom line is that the Kurdish people lost whatever land they had. So they were now not even second, third class citizens. You know who benefited from this? The Kurdish bourgeoisie. They grabbed up the land that were not allowed for the other Kurds, and they became very, very rich. So a new division, this is the last section, a new division of region is underway. Turkey is salivating together with this new partner in crime, Israel, to swallow their common neighbor. So what is to be done? Taner Akçam is a professor of history, and he sees, and he knows the region very well. He sees a new structure emerging, and he sees from the imperialist point of view the crisis that's happening in the Middle East, Syria, Turkey, so on and so forth, Lebanon, is that there is not a hegemon to provide the stability. Imperialism needs stability. Why? Because the next attack to Iran, to Russia, and so on and so forth, will need a stabilized region. But as you can see, everybody sees, this is not there. So how to solve this is maybe instead of one hegemon country like Israel taking over the whole region, now two hegemons may be sharing the hegemony to install stability. In order to do this, they need an executioner, and Turkey stands up for the task. Turkey has been begging for this task for the last 20, 30 years to the United States. It kept on telling United States that Israel stands up like a sore thumb in the Middle East. Right in the middle of all these Muslims, there is this one country that's Jewish and Western. It doesn't bode well. Turkey is saying, hey, I'm here. Let me do your work. Forget this Israel. I am better than Israel. I'm Muslim. I can lead. You'll still get whatever you want. But United States has not taken that risk, and Turkey was not unable to prove that it could do what Israel is able to do. So in the last 20 years or so, Turkey has been preparing to pass that, peace at home, peace in the world. That slogan is no more. Turkey is attacking its neighbors. It can show imperialism that it is a force to reckon with. But while doing this, Turkey has played two sides of the fence with the United States and Russia. At times, Turkey has cozied up to Russia. At times, it cozied up to the United States. But let's not confuse ourselves. Turkey is a NATO state. NATO state. Its entire army is fed and is organized and is standardized in NATO ways. So it will never, ever make its boss, the alpha male, the US, very cross with itself, although it may dance between the two, like the S-400s that it purchased, and Russia only gave them empty tubes with nothing to go, and Turkey paid billions for it. It's still rotting away in warehouses. But in this process, with the Syria, Turkey found out that the US does need it for the boots on the ground, and so Turkey is seeing that it can become one of the two hegemons to take over the land, annex parts of Syria, and bring stability. So in order to bring the stability, though, there is a big problem sitting in the laps of these two countries. One has the Palestinians, the others have the Kurds in their countries, and they are not going away. So I think what is happening, as proposed by Akjam, is that Turkey may become the protector of Palestinians in Israel, and Israel may become the protector of the Kurds in Turkey. Nice game, but politically, it may be hard to get these two countries together to sign agreements or be, just do things in peace. But at least the show is that they oppose each other, which they are not. So let's then go. Oh yeah, two-state solution for Palestine is finished. Russia-Iran axis to support Palestine or Syria is finished, and Israel and Turkey will face the internal enemies. Say. So what must be done? I'm sorry, just a minute. What must be done? The class independence must never be abandoned. This holds, even though they are giving a liberation war, a liberation defense, this holds for Syrians, Arabs, Turks, Kurds, and the other people. Our ideology should never, ever support a bourgeois ideology. The world that we have seen in the rising imperialism around 1900s is over. The world has been divided, and the imperialists will either colonize in the neocolonial type, or steal neocolonies from each other. And the way that they do this is with the support and working together with the local bourgeoisie, because that is in the class interest of that bourgeoisie in the late imperialist stage. So BRICS, just 1 minute. Alan, would you look at the security to see if the whiteboard can be used or not?
Okay.
So, yeah. unfortunately, the Turkish left in the past has been influenced by the Kemalist state. And although many Turkish leftists claim to be Marxist-Leninist, at the base still lies that chauvinist, nationalist, racist, even racist ideologies that were taught to them by Atatürk or Mustafa Kemal. So any struggle in Syria or Palestine brings up the old, they were and should be our subjects, racist, nationalist, and chauvinistic argument, even in the left, unfortunately. True position of a Marxist-Leninist would be the proletarian class's interest against all bourgeois classes. NATO will always be on the side of Turkey and will always defend it and will not go in to defend Kurds in the region for a long time. The reason why I'm saying this is that the Turkish left is championing in Turkey to propagandize that the United States is behind the Kurds. This is their way of attacking the Kurds, our subjects, and to portray them as, again, like the Arabs did in 1917, 1918, collaborating with imperialists. That gives them the reason that they can actually attack the Kurds again. But James Jeffrey, when asked by a journalist on the help that the United States is giving to the Kurdish movements, says it openly. The US has a long history of treating the PKK as a terrorist organization. There is a very serious and extensive support from the United States, much of it classified as secret, for the Republic of Turkey's fight against the PKK. The United States is on the side of the Republic of Turkey in this struggle. There is no doubt about that. Even as we speak, Turkey has amassed its armies and its the puppet army in Syria, the National Army of Syria. There's not a single Syrian in that army. They are all from Uyghur region of the, from China, from Europe, some Chechens, many Turks. So that's called the Syrian National Army that Turkey supports. They were ready to go in to fight with the Kurds in whatever has been left to the Kurds, but United States, in no ambiguous terms, told Turkey, no, don't do that. So that's why the TKP and the other nationalists say that United States is behind the Kurds, but that's not true. The Sharia country of Syria, the Islamo-fascist Syria now is very new. And it needs to establish itself. It does not want wars. It does not want uprisings. It just wants stability. And even the Kurds themselves, some portions of them, the leader of the Kurdish army in PKK in Syria has just a couple of days ago said, we want to join the Syrian army. We are part of the country. Remember, again, back in 1900s, when the Kurdish bourgeoisie was opting for staying with Syria instead of fighting for an autonomous or a sovereign Kurdish nation. So again, the question comes in, so what does liberation mean? What is this fight all about? Well, just to, again, counter the TKP's position, I had to show how chauvinist and nationalist they are. They adore Mustafa Kemal, the founder of Turkey, who has said in the assembly itself, he's talking about the Turkish Communist Party, their own party. He says the Communist Party of Turkey and Mustafa Kemal's predecessors are at the head of those who constitute this group. They have made some attempts to benefit the principled people in Moscow who give them money, protect them, and attach importance to them. In this way, communism has begun to be brought into our country and our nation from outside. I feel like Trump talking. But anyway, after this, he killed Mustafa Suphi, the founder of the Turkish Communist Party, with 15 of his comrades. So this is the idol that the Turkish Communist Party is still following. Now, this is, I think, one of the last slides. I have 2 or 3 left. Let's look at what Vladimir Lenin says in his The Right of Nations to Self-Determination. How or when can we support, and how we can support bourgeoisie in case we need to? He says the bourgeoisie, which naturally assumes the leadership at the start of every national movement, says that support for all national aspirations is practical. He is actually arguing here against Rosa Luxemburg, who looks. He says for practical purposes we should support. However, the proletariat's policy in the national question, as in all others, supports the bourgeoisie only in a certain direction, but it never coincides with the bourgeoisie's policy. I wonder if Apo ever read this. The working class supports the bourgeoisie only in order to secure national peace, which the bourgeoisie cannot bring completely, or only with complete democracy, in order to secure equal rights and to create the best conditions for the working struggle. Therefore, it is in opposition to the practicality of the bourgeoisie that the proletarians advance their principles in the national question. They always give the bourgeoisie only conditional support. What every bourgeoisie is out for in the national question is either privileges for its own nation, these are the bourgeoisie, or exceptional advantages for it. This is called being practical. The proletariat is opposed to all privileges, to all exclusiveness. To demand that it should be practical means following the lead of the bourgeoisie, falling into opportunism. So I think this is my last. Lenin wrote this in 1914. That's 110 years ago. Imperialism took 110 more years to develop. So it's not what it was there. But Lenin's words are more true today when he's cautioning joining forces with the bourgeoisie for a practical purpose of national liberation, for struggle, or to go and give your blessing to a Turkish national fascist state. It should be, Lenin's words are much more needed today. National bourgeoisie in most world has turned into comprador capitalists at the service of imperialism against their own country and people. Imperialism has become an internal affair for neo-colonies. Internal affair, meaning that if you're going to fight imperialism, you got to fight your own bourgeoisie. Now national liberation is an issue of revolution. In the face of more imperialist aggression, what is to be done? That is, should we then fight the Syrian capitalists, Palestinian bourgeoisie, and say that we are fighting imperialism? No, let's go back to Lenin. He says conditional support, conditional. Yes, for the liberation of the country from imperialism, to counter the imperialist attacks, yes, we can, in a limited way, in a certain instance, for some time, we can fight imperialism together with the bourgeoisie. But does that mean giving our ideology to the service of capitalists? No, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehmet. If you want to, let me hold on.
I was
here.
even on time, Alan.
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything about that, but yes, we'll give you credit. Even though when you jumped to the 15th century, we were a little concerned.
I know.
After a few short announcements, we're going to have a Q&A session from participants. To ask a question or make a comment, what you can do is click on the reactions button, raise your hand at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and in your Zoom window. And just like to remind everybody to please keep your questions short. Ask one question at a time to allow everyone to participate. And keep in mind that this is a comradely forum for political discussion. Please show respect to other participants, the speaker, and the moderator of today's session. We have a couple of very interesting sessions coming up. Next week on January 19th at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, The Compatible Left in Service of Imperialism. Speaker will be Stansfield Smith. You can read more about him and the topic on our website at icssmarks.org. And then on Sunday, January 26th, again at 10:30 Pacific time, Establishing a Successful Anti-Imperialist Political Party in the US, which will have speakers Butch Ware and Laura Wells. Butch Ware is the vice president candidate for the Green Party presidential election, and Laura Wells is the chair, I believe, of the California Green Party. We want to remind everybody that you can sign up for email notifications for our programs at ICSSmarks.org, where you can find links to video recordings of our past programs. You can contact us with feedback, suggestions for future programs and topics, and also to make a donation to support our Sunday morning sessions. So let me go ahead and go over here to, let me enable everybody to unmute. And we have 3 hands up. And let's start with Dave. Dave, if you would unmute yourself and ask your question, please go ahead.
Oh, hi, Mehmet. It was a great talk. So just a question that what is the proletariat then in Turkey, and how big is the proletariat, and other classes, like peasantry or so that's my question.
Good question. I don't have the figures right in front of me, but 1990s, something changed in 1980 that Turkey wanted to integrate, or were forced to integrate, into imperialism when it came to a certain development, which meant that the current structure was not sufficient to support that integration. I mean, the production had to go up, and import substitution had to go, neoliberal policies had to come in. So that together with that Kurdish migration I talked about, the emptying of the east and moving everybody to the metropolitan areas, actually was a part of this policy. The peasantry had to be proletarianized, which they did. In 1980s, even up to 1990s, I would say that peasantry still was the force. It was the bigger force. But today, capitalism has taken over even the agriculture and so forth. And I would say that with that, the proletarian force is now a force to be reckoned with. I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers, but one thing I'd say is that this changed a lot of discussions in the left, because prior to 2000s, mostly the Maoist side of the left had a foothold on the Turkish revolution, because their analysis was based on a peasantry that would be considered as revolutionary. And proletarians was not enough in the Maoist structure. The proletarians was not enough to carry on its own revolution. So the parties and the fighters that came out of the Maoist tradition mostly talks about proletarian ideology leading the way, not proletarians. proletarian ideology. What they were saying is that we represent the proletarians, and our ideology is the proletarian ideology, and proletaria is not enough yet to be able to handle the revolution. So we base ourselves on the peasantry. So most of the guerrilla that came out of that movement actually tried to carry the fight to the countryside. And they went and tried to hide in the mountains and in the peasants or in the villages. Turned out to be a disaster. So, but even at that time, the TKP and the Soviet type communist parties or Soviet, trending communist parties, they held a completely opposite position on this. They said that no, Turkey has done its bourgeois democratic revolution, and Turkey is now a fully capitalist country with its proletariat. Even the agrarians could be considered proletarians. So the revolution is going to be done with and only with the proletarians. Well, both of them couldn't go too far, but again, the Turkish structure has changed for sure with this shock, 1981 fascist coup shock, and the displacement of the Kurds from the countryside forced them to the country, has proletarianized them all. One other thing is that even the proletarians, even at that time, and maybe a little bit now, is that they weren't fully proletarian. They had one foot in their village. So instead of like buying bread every day, they would go to their village and bring sacks of flour so that all year round they could still do their bread at home while they're living in Istanbul. And but that is pretty much broken now too, as capitalism has seeped into every corner, and the proletarians have nothing else to live on except their labor is the real workforce of Turkey today. But I will try to find you the numbers and maybe send them over.
Okay, next is Mike. If you would unmute, please, Mike.
Okay, so my question is Turkish military production. When I look on the internet, it looks like Turkey has the brand new, the 5th generation fighter jets. They have drones. They have this and the other. And I'm curious, who's likely to be their customer base? Is it mostly for domestic control? Are they trying to compete in Africa to sell African governments these fighter jets, or to different European governments, or who's actually going to be the end user of all the military equipment that they're producing?
Very good question. They're looking at markets, but let's be clear on when we say Turkish military production. Turkey produces one of the most sought after, the drones that Ukraine uses, actually. Ukraine and many other countries use. The production is done by the corporation that is the father-in-law of Erdogan's daughter, okay? And it enjoys exclusive projects and millions, hundreds of millions of US dollars of support from the Turkish government. But one thing that we need to be clear is that, are they really Turkish? Is that Turkish production? A couple of years ago, Turkey, I don't know what, but it didn't comply with some of the sanctions or whatever the limitations. And Canada stopped sending Turkey the cameras that are used on those, the drones. And the production stopped that day. One day, just one day. When Canada said no more cameras, it stopped. All the technology that you are seeing there is actually bought from other countries, imperialist countries. Turkey touts this as our own. We are doing that. The other thing is, when 2016, there was an so-called uprising, still in question what happened, but by Fethullah Gulen, the CIA operative that just died a few months ago in the United States, against Erdogan. And Erdogan, in his paranoia, started cleaning up the army. And in that way, even the pilot that had him escape the coup, the pilot secretly flew him out of the coup's hands, and he survived. Even that pilot was arrested, and I think he's still in prison. And many pilots and top-notch, the generals and everything were thrown out of the army. Again, many of them were tortured and are still in prison. So he gutted the army. He gutted the Turkish army. At one time, when Turkey was attacking the Kurds in Syria, they were having a hard time finding pilots. This is how the situation is volatile. This is how, it's so cracking up. Yes, Turkey is, let's be very clear, that the next imperialist clashes are going to be in Africa. And Turkey is trying to get a foothold in Africa. And it puts this as we're doing it for the Turks. This is the Turkish expansion. What they call the Red Apple back in 1900s. This was the project. Red Apple was the project for Turks to take over the world. And now the color of the red apple is green by Islamic color. And Turkey is doing this to spread Islam in Somalia, in many countries in Africa that I can't even find on the map. Turkish Airlines flies every day. That's the Turkish government airlines, of course. And they won't say how much they're losing or not. But in many cases, it was shown that those planes going empty to African countries and back were carrying weapons. So as China moves in to Africa through its economic development projects, imperialism needs to move in. But does United States move to Africa itself, establish more bases, or let Turkey prove itself that it can do what Israel does? That is the question. Turkey is trying to prove that, yes, it has the arms and it has, it can do the dirty work of imperialism. Like Trump said, I think, when Turkey attacked Israel, they asked him about the US troops. And he said, there's like about 900. What can they do? But we have the Turks doing the work for us. So that's why that technology that is not there is being sold or is being taken there by Turkey. And Turkey is looking at a foothold there to establish itself, mostly for the internal consumption. Erdogan is a hero among his followers because he finally broke that peace at home, peace in the world, and Turkey is now ready to go and attack. Show them what a Turkey is, and Erdogan is doing it in Africa. Our Muslim brothers, we are helping them. Wait a minute, in Turkey there's hunger. I know I'm saying this just like we can say this for United States as well. Here, the Los Angeles is burning and we don't have anything to help them with while we're helping the neo-Nazis in Ukraine and in Israel. But this is exactly what Turkey is doing as well. A lot of people are committing suicide because they are embarrassed that they cannot buy a pair of pants for their kids going to school. They can only go and look in the garbage and find some leftover bread, thrown out bread, to make the day go by. And Turkey is building mosques in and the corruption, especially in the military sector. I mean, just the other day, an engineer in the military sector, many happened like this. An engineer in the military sector committed suicide. He had everything going for him. He had a job, he was getting paid, this and that, and one after other, many suspicious deaths and suicides. It's very common in Turkey for women and these people in interesting positions to commit suicides. So I do not think that Turkey has broken that technology limit where it can now produce itself. Look, Turkey is finally producing its own automobile. It's called TOG, T-O-G-G. It took them years and years and years, and the government supported it. Again, it's one of the companies that is very closely and relatively, working together with the government, with the corruption. And then they found out that the design was made by Italy. The motor was by, I think, Germany. The chassis was made by this, the other. So all Turkey does is bring them together, screw them together, and present you as their technological, breakthrough. So militarily, Turkey will try to exert itself. But again, if they were so advanced in militarily, why haven't they even beaten the Kurdish guerrillas at their own home? Since 1984, every day they tell us that the guerrilla is finished, Kurds are finished. We know their shoe sizes. And then they can't do anything. The entire regions are now controlled by Kurds. If they were so militarily advanced, they could wipe them out, but they can't. Look at it in Syria. Also, Kurds beat them, the so-called the National Army of Syria. Kurds beat them in many, many wars. So until the United States moved in. So anyway, I do not think that Turkey is in a position militarily to venture too much out of Turkey and be a leadership. But Ukraine and others have both their, actually Turkey was in hot water with Russia because Ukraine was using its drones. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm taking over. Alan had to go, so I'll be filling in as the moderator for the rest of the program. Norma is next. Norma, please go ahead.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Oy vey. Mehmet, that was brilliant. What you did is you took all the nations by hand and led us through all the contexts we needed to recognize in a very structural manner that is very useful. Thank you. I put a note in the chat talking about the value to me that the familiarity that I got by listening to Rick Sterling 10, 15 years ago about Rojava kind of oriented me to be able to figure out what's going on according to what you told us. That was a big, the idea, if I suggested to people that they might like to find out what was going on in Rojava to understand the rest of what you were talking about. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree. One thing, may I just say there? Yes. It's very interesting. Rojava is a very interesting and positive experiment, but things are changing. Like Mark says, all that goes into solid that goes into thin air is that. Just a couple of days ago, the leader of the Rojava, PYK, announced that they wanted to join the Syrian army. Now, imagine that, again, last week, the German, what's her name? The German foreign minister, a woman, went to Damascus, wearing white pants and a white shirt, and who had helped actually the HTS to take power. And the leader, he changed his name so many times, I can't remember. Anyway, so he refused to shake her hand, the hand of the foreign minister of Germany. And not only that, but the pictures, the photographs that was published by the HTS Syria had her blurred in the picture. So here's an official picture with everybody standing around, except this woman, the foreign minister of Germany, which was blurred out because she's a woman. Now, how will Rojava go on when, they have done a women's revolution? Women are, they are organizing, they are leading, they are there. Nothing in the world. They had done something that was not done in the world. They have accomplished that. So how is that organization going to work with the Sharia laws that was brought to Syria? We're in for very interesting days, I think.
Okay, so the next one is James McFadden. James, please go ahead.
Thank you. It was a very interesting and informative talk. It seems that the U.S. can't count on supplying an army anymore to support its imperialism, so we need proxies, and Turkey's going to play that proxy for us, it sounds like, in Africa. And I'm wondering is that proxy going to do what Israel's doing, which is just to sow chaos by supplying arms to whoever, and chaos, much like in the Congo, frees up corporations to exploit. The first, and then the second question is, how much is Erdogan's power based on having an outside threat that he can talk about, and do the Kurds play that role? Is it a useful role for him to maintain power, to have that, and if the Kurds go away, then it'll be Iran, I assume. And then the third, just as an ask, is if you could suggest a few books that would help inform us more about the region and about history and recent events. Thanks.
Thank you. The first question is, Turkey will try doing what Israel has done, but can it? I'm not so sure. But first of all, even like sowing discord in those countries, by building mosques in Somalia and Mali and other places, it's the Turkish corporations that are close to Erdogan, either by blood or by, they are the ones who are building it. So they are there, and but they will not bring anything different than what they are doing in Turkey today. Corruption. Just a news 3 days ago is that Turkey built, this is at home, Turkey built a bridge costing hundreds of millions of US dollars, actually, US dollars worth in Turkey. Huge bridge. Now the government built it with its private, whatever, the contractors. Now the government can't even find the bridge. I'm not kidding. That bridge doesn't even exist. This is the corruption we are looking at. When these people go to Africa, what do you think they are going to be able to do? They are there to yes, bring discord into those countries and be the arms carrier for imperialism when it's needed and time comes. That's why they're there for. The books on Turkey, I think, in English, unfortunately, there's not too much, especially about the grave wolves. And we are working on a book to bring the memoirs of the September 12 coup, and there we are going to be mentioning them. But there is a book on Ataturk that is critical. Let's remember, the Turks are very proud that the West has been very pro Kemal Atatürk. And he's actually, we have to acknowledge that he's the one that has promoted this gray wolf, the ideology. Back in 1930s, when a professor of history, they were going to have a history conference, international history conference, and this professor, who was actually originally from Europe, I mean, very well educated and everything. So, and I'm sorry, he was from Soviet Union, and he was an expert in the Turkish history. He had written books and so forth. So he goes to them and says, look, guys, I mean, international professors, historians are coming. Let's not bring too much to the fore about the mythology of the wolves and the Turks. It's just like the Roman mythology of, a female wolf leading the Turks from Central Asia. So he says, let's not bring this up. Atatürk wanted to kill him. He had to go in exile and he had to flee the country just because he proposed that let's stick to the historical, science. So anyway, that's why the Turks and the Western countries actually have praised Atatürk because he has been the voice and the face of imperialism in Turkey. In one of the slides I put down there saying that imperialism in neocolonial countries is an internal affair, meaning that British don't have to come with boots to Turkey to rule. They have Atatürk, they have Erdogan, they have all the private president. They are the ones who do it voluntarily and very happily for the imperialists. Look, when Soviet Union was established, the banks in the West went to Soviet Union, to Lenin, and said, you know what, the Tsar owed us so many millions of dollars or pounds and whatever. You now have to pay it to us. Now that you took over, you're still obliged to pay it. And Lenin said, go and get it from whoever you gave it to. It wasn't us. You're not getting a single penny. But when Ottomans went down and Turkey was established, and Mustafa Kemal said, this is a brand new country. We have nothing to do with Ottomans. When the banks, Western banks, came to Turkey and said, you owe us, Mustafa Kemal said, oh, yes, of course, no worries, I'll pay. And he paid every single penny. He didn't, of course, the people paid for it. So they love this man who Westernized, allowed this buffer country between Soviet Union and the West to exist, but they had a problem with explaining why now the West was supporting the genocidal Turkey. Genocidal. They had done Armenian genocide, and all the Western countries had said, bad, they are doing genocide. We have to tame them. We have to try. And then Mustafa Kemal comes in, says, I am brand new. I'm no longer a Muslim country. I have no religion, government religion, so on and so forth. So now he presented a new face that the West could work with. So that's why this Western admiration for Atatürk is very high. And Turks use the say, see, he's such a genius that the whole world praises him. So, but again, going back to the gray wolves, he was the one who had established that ideology. And that's why the books on the West, in the West, are mostly in praise of him for creating a new nation, being Westernized, being for science, positivist ideology, and so on and so forth. So it's very hard to find those. There was one book that the name I can't find right now. Maybe next time I will put it on the chat. But apart from that, yeah, it's hard to find those books.
Okay, so next, and if I'm not in sequence, please forgive me, because when Alan left, I wasn't monitoring who was next. So all of a sudden I have a I have on my screen 3 people. Judith Osterman is who I will go to, and then followed by Janet and then Lucy. Okay, that'll be sequence. Judith, please go ahead. Is Judith there? Judith Osterman? Okay, there she is.
Yeah, I couldn't unmute. All right, so can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so thank you very much. That was so informative. And
Okay.
would your written material be available anywhere to read separately? Because it went by so fast, I couldn't read everything.
Yes, actually, I had promised that to Janet last time, and you know what? My disk crashed, and although I'm a religious backupper, I had not backed that portion up, so I lost that one. But this one, I will post it on the slides. I will post it on our website on this
Oh, okay.
session. So if you'd like to, give me a couple of days, and then it will be there.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I
Okay.
wanted to, first of all, I wanted to ask you, is there any proof of life for this man? I can't pronounce his name. It was spelled Öcalan.
Öcalan, yes.
Öcalan, okay. Yeah, is there proof of life and proof that he has his faculties? That's number one. And the other one is, how integrated with imperialism is Turkish capitalism? For instance, does BlackRock own half of Turkey, or who actually owns the Turkish companies? Do Europeans or Americans or multinational corporations own them? And I forgot my third question, so that's all.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, Öcalan is alive. Actually, for years, you're absolutely right. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. Not his family, not his doctors, not his lawyers. Nobody was allowed to see him. But when the second opening, as it's called, about 2 months ago, started, then the legal party, the Dem Party, was allowed about 10 days ago to go in and visit him. And that's why he published the new letter, again, giving praises to the Turkish regime. But that brings up the question, is his faculties there? It's a good question. That's what the Kurds are asking, because there is a lot of guerrillas on Kandil Mountain and in Syria saying that how can he give away years of struggle and what we have gained in Rojava, in other places. Turkey is getting prepared to attack Rojava, kill women, children, everything. And Öcalan says, yeah, that's fine. This is, no worries. We are brothers. So is his faculties there? Who knows? He's been under torture. He's been under isolation for years in a cell. Although after the first, I think, the opening, they said that he would be moving into a two-bedroom suite in the prison. I don't know, but that's a very valid question. But he is alive, because the Dem Party, when they came back, they reported that this is what he said, this is what they brought him, and everything. So he's there. What was the second question? The economy. Yeah. Right. Well, remember when Lenin wrote his imperialism, there was only few countries that exported capital and so on. But today's economy, every single country is so tied to imperialism and global capitalism that it's even a question that you ask, which corporation is whose? I mean, even in the United States, I mean, do the beer companies, are the beer companies American? Are they, when we say it's sold to such and such, is that British? Is that Italian? But Turkey is, Turkey is in a tremendous economic crisis. And the only way they are able to survive is to sell whatever properties they have. And I think last time I mentioned the Turkish telecommunication company that was, in an appraisal was worth $46 billion or so. It covers entire Turkey. Was sold for $6 billion. Okay, so to an international consortium, or I'm sorry, to a Lebanese businessman who later gave it back. So the imperialist corporations are just having a heyday in Turkey. Everything is for sale, while the Turkish so-called national bourgeoisie is all over the world buying up. Just the other day, a Italian car company was bought by Turks. And this includes Turkish military industry as well. Many, many foreign corporations have stakes in them or have bought them. And 19, I believe, sugar, this belonged to the government. 19 sugar factories were privatized, meaning they were sold out. And they were then later on sold to foreign investments. Cargill is very much alive and well in Turkey, thank you. And so Cargill buys the sugar factories and then brings sugar or substitute and sells it to the people while those factories run, because those factories were sold at less price than just the land itself. So yes, Turkey is full of foreign corporations. And I don't know about the Blackwell, but many corporations have bought mining, especially mining is just devastating. They come to mine gold and they destroy entire mountains and forests, and they poison the water of the villages around them. And remember, I was saying something, for a question about the peasantry or the proletariat. It's very interesting today that the peasant movement against the corporations that are mining, international corporations that are mining in Turkey and are poisoning their waters or building dams to get water, are as much as the proletarian resistance today in the factories. So it's a very interesting thing. And now the operation of these mines and factories are done by local Turkish capitalists, but the owners themselves are foreign. So that brings a lot of security questions, and especially what's a nation state, imperialism, a lot of those questions come in. But nothing in the world is now like owned by China, owned by Turkey, owned by Greece, everything. So thank you.
Okay, so the next person in line is Janet Coburn. Janet, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Raj. Thank you, Mehmet, for this great presentation. Let me start by mentioning that
I think your
podcast today.
You were
Can
cut,
you hear
Janet.
me now?
Can you? Yes, can you repeat it, please? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. According to Laith Maroof in an Activist Network News podcast today, you can hear me?
Yes.
He said Yemen is going to start attacking Turkish ships in the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean because, well, as far as they can go, because Turkey continues to supply Israel with oil and other supplies. I'll post the podcast in the chat. That said, I have a couple of questions. Based on how you describe the origin of the Turks after the defeat of the Ottoman Empire, like the creation of the Turks, I guess, am I correct in seeing them as Turkey's white European supremacists? That's one. The other, I keep reading and hearing about how the Kurds in Syria are protecting the US occupied oil fields. Which Kurds are these? Can you talk about this and what it's about? Thanks.
First of all, yes, you are right. Turks want to think themselves as the white European race. Actually, they do. It just changed one night, like I said.
Supremacists?
Supremacists, yes,
Supremacists?
definitely supremacists, definitely. Because we were joking before the program on who they think the Turks are, from American Indians to Romans to Vikings, all of those in the like the ideology of the Atatürk's Turkishness are considered Turks, and the dark races, the dark people of the East, are only good to become our subjects. Okay, that's given. That's, even if they don't say this, this is the ideology. Today in Turkey, there's a big problem of Syrian, Pakistani refugees, Afghani refugees in Turkey. Europe has paid Turkey tremendous amounts to say, don't let these refugees come to Europe. Keep them in Turkey. I'll give you money for that. So just keep them there. And there is, some people say it's 10 million, but I think the official figure is like about 3 or 4 million people from the East are now living in Turkey, mostly Syrian. There is just unbelievable racist attacks every day on the streets to them. Their language, their culture, their skin color, their anything associated with them is considered as like cave culture. They are the lesser people. Why are they with us? We are the civilized, while they are the da-da-da-da-da-da. So this is the culture of racism installed by Mustafa Kemal. Now, growing up in 1980s, 70s, we did not hear this that much. Is it because it just came up? No. Because like if you go to a pure white village in southern states, there is not a single black face there, okay? You're not gonna see racism. Everybody's gonna be happy eating their pies and drinking lemonade and nice people until that different person comes in there. This is what happened to Turkey. When those people came in, suddenly the Kemalism kicked in and the racism, okay, yes, it's supremacist, it's white, Turks consider themselves white, I don't know why. The other thing is that what is Turkishness, again, going back to that creation of it, during the when the generals in Anatolia were trying to gather people to fight in the First World War or against the occupation, they were trying to gather them for being Turks. Hey, the Turks are under attack. We Turks need to get. They were pulling out their hair. They have not seen one single person who identified as Turk. Not one single person. So that Turkishness was created in the image of a supremacist white face. And Ataturk from Salonika in Greece, of course, represented a European side. And I can go on, but look at the statues in Turkey of Ataturk and the Turks. They were copied inch by inch by the German, the higher race, muscular, blonde, blue. At one time, the Turkish, when Ataturk was alive, the Turkish nation was defined with a, like the measurement of the skull and being blonde and blue-eyed. If you are not blonde and blue-eyed, you are not Turkish. Well, that didn't fly well, did it? So they had to pull back on that one. Now, the oil fields, I believe, yes, maybe the Kurds are protecting, I don't have any information, but the Kurds are protecting their land. That's their hope, that one day they will be allowed to process their oil and get the spoils of it. But who is carrying that oil from there? Who is? It's the Turks. Erdogan's own son. Those ships that the Yemenis are going to attack are carrying the oil that was, taken from the Middle East in Turkish tankers that are related to Erdogan and is carrying around the world. So yes, that's the carrot that is being dangled in front of the Kurds. That yeah, you too, my son, will one day have these oils. So. I think that's where it goes. But everything isn't changing. Everything melts into thin air. So that may change in about a week. Thank you.
Okay, so next one is Lucy Rios. Lucy, please start your question or comment.
Oh yeah, Mehmet, thank you so very much. I really enjoyed it. The only problem is that I had to leave for a little while and then I came back. I got the ending of it, but I hadn't realized how complicated situation in the Middle East is. In Latin America, the relationship between the U.S. imperialism and the global South, as I look at South America, is much more defined because the U.S. has had a long history of attacking countries in the South. They change regimes every time the U.S. feels that the workers are bubbling up in Central America. They would send the military, and so the people, the local people, the peasantry, and the workers in Latin America are more aware of the nature of imperialism. And so their comprador bourgeoisie, and they do have comprador bourgeoisie. In Mexico, there is one really big, and it ruled Mexico for a long time. But the people are more aware. And so for that reason, there's been more countries that have developed an independence, like Cuba, like Nicaragua and Venezuela, and hopefully Mexico at some point. But what I was interested in, because I think it was you that you mentioned that Turkey lies in the cross-section between Europe, right? And the peninsula.
In Asia, yes.
In Asia, so it's very strategic. So I can see that imperialism is really interested in getting Turkey, and so Turkey is trying to sell itself as a very important strategic point, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Turkey thinks that it is indispensable, but Turkey thinks that it is indispensable, so it is there. But
That's
very
right.
interestingly, only about a few years ago, Greece just walked in and took over the islands in the Aegean Sea that belonged to Turkey, and Turkey didn't even move a muscle. So
Wow.
that's the position that they have. Now, you brought a very good point in comparing Latin America and the regions in the Middle East. This is an ongoing debate in Middle East and in Turkey. One of the major, I think, trends that tries to explain why the people in the Middle East has not risen up as much as the Latin American people. So one of the reasons they bring is religion. I think that has something to do with it. But Catholicism as well had similar things to Islam to control the societies.
Oh yeah.
But one other thing is the rule of Ottomans. That was very, I think, interesting in that it didn't, like the Kurds, it gave autonomy to the countries that it owned, to Arabs, to others they would go and say they were so lazy. Ottomans were so lazy. They didn't even want to rule another country. They would say, look, give me taxes, give me armies when I want to do whatever you want to do. Don't bother me.
Mm.
That was the ruling state.
Mm.
So that allowed people to think that they were kind of autonomous, they're good, life goes on. Instead of the more capitalistization, like in Latin America, and the nationalism that I think came with it. Now, one thing is that you're saying the capitalists in Mexico and other places, I'm going to keep like Venezuela and Cuba out of for the others, is that being a comprador is not just an official label. If you are a businessman and you are doing business in today's world, if you're going to open a shoe factory, let's say that you're going to produce shoes, you know what? You buy your machinery from Italy. You buy your leather from such and such. You buy your chemicals from United States. Canada gives you know-how, as they call it. You have to license everything that you're saying. And United States says where you can sell these shoes or not. Simple. If you are in the business of doing this, you are working together with them and you are in their control. You have become comprador because your class consciousness now tells you that your interest lies in keeping good relationships with the Canadians, with the Italians, the British, and so on and so forth. And next time they come to you and say, hey, why don't you open a textile factory, a television factory? You say, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then again, they are the ones who own, they are the ones who control the technology, what you can produce, what the definition of the screen is going to be for Mexico. So you are actually have become a comprador. Versus, what was it before? Previously, the capitalists in those countries used to say, I don't want no goddamn Canada coming in here. I'm going to do my own. I have borders. I have customs. I'm going to control. Hey, maybe my screen resolution isn't going to be well, but hey, this is my backyard. Nobody's coming in. I am going to exploit the working class. I'm going to exploit the labor, and I will be the one selling it to them. But it's no longer. So this relationship is what is called being a comprador.
Mm.
Okay, thank you, Mehmet. So we have one more. Richard Wright is.
No, I was just going to say, I was thinking about the puppets that the U.S. imposes in the government, as those being the compradors, but maybe they should be called the selladors because they sell themselves. Never mind.
Okay, so Richard Wright is the last person because we have only 3 minutes remaining. Richard,
Yeah.
please go ahead and keep your question short so Mehmet can answer it.
I'm not so sure this will be a question, or it'll be more of a comment, I think. First off, thank you for your presentation, Mehmet. There's a lot there to digest. My comment is this: is that, and I'll let you do with it what you will. We keep talking about we keep talking about national economies, as though it's U.S. economy versus Turkish economy versus French or German, what have you. And I know I brought this up before, and I'll bring it up again. I want to bring it up again. And that is that it seems to me ironic that actually that label of a national economy is much more applicable to Russia or China, maybe Iran, than it is to say the United States, where here the corporations, they don't they've long time, they've done away with national boundaries. And, you know, we keep, you know, so we're working on a Weltanschauung, if you will, that's been out of date for going on close to 100 years. And we need to revise that. Okay, I'll just shut up on that point and let you do with it what you want to do with it. Thank you.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, just look at it. A few years ago, Mike Zuckerberg as well. They started denouncing their U.S. citizenship, didn't they? So now is Facebook an American corporation? Is that, you know, providing to the American economy? No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it has gone global, and you know, whose money is in whose pocket and who controls who others' pocket is really a complex situation. China and Russia were, I believe, forced to, maybe Russia. China is a different horse with a different color, but Russia was forced to play at home more than the international waters. And so that kind of forced them to become national economies. I agree with you there. But the reasons aside why, but yes, they can be said to have more national economies in the past, you know, in the old sense than what United States is. Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to maybe make a comment and maybe ask Mehmet a question, if it's okay, Mehmet.
Sure.
Be the last one unless somebody else comes in. So I looked up, there's one Turkish corporation which is in the Fortune 500. That's called KOC. I don't know how you pronounce it. KOC.
Koç. Yeah, Koç.
Yeah, Koç Corporation. I don't know what they do, but they are in the largest 500 corporations of the world. But the thing about Turkey is that Ottoman was a feudal empire. You know, it's like all like feudal empires. It was, and then it got entangled in World War. It got
World War One.
World War One, right? So it
Yes.
got, and then I think Turkish country. I mean, defining Turkey became, you know, it didn't have a bourgeoisie growing up there sufficiently to have territorial. So military took its place, seems like. And I think even before the state that you call fascist state, which came in '86, Turkey had a US base about where the Jupiter missiles were placed, pointing to the homeland of Khrushchev in '62, during which Kennedy agreed to remove. So Turkey has had problem developing national bourgeoisie because it got caught up in even before its corporation come into existence, they were completely controlled. Now, so that process is in Turkey, but I think this principle that you're applying, that there is no national corporations, it's all comprador, there is a center, only G7, and they are the ones. I challenge that. I don't think this is true. I think you have to look each country's development, and the business is done, you know, sure enough, global enough business, but the question is that it takes two things. One is how capable was and how well organized was the bourgeoisie that fought against imperialism to gain independence. And could it unify? Could it push them out, take over its position? Don't let the communists take over, which is what happened in India. Indian bourgeoisie took over the state under Gandhian leadership, although Gandhi was a peculiar guy. He didn't want that, but his vision, economic vision, was so muddled, impractical, that basically he paved the way for them. So then came the state, but it's still state. Actually, here's a sign. Indian state under Nehru, which is a bourgeois state, did not allow America to provide aid with its conditions and said, no, the Britain and Germany provided steel mills because they were developing under government, which was not for socialism, but because it was the bourgeoisie's unified approach to develop infrastructure. And I think that defines national bourgeoisie. You use the resources carefully so that you can have a market, that you're not completely routed out. Pakistan, for example, completely got manipulated by the United States, and it's a mess. So Indonesia, on the other hand, today is, even though the United States interfered, got rid of Sukarno, and then had a coup and killed 1 million communists there. Indonesia today is far more independent country than, let's say, Pakistan and Turkey. And it's partly to do also with geographical location, as Lucy pointed out. Turkey and the United States cannot allow that strategic location to develop independence. So it is much more pressing on Turkey to be a client state. And Erdogan doesn't have enough of a wherewithal to fight it. And so he's pretending to be this Ottoman guy. Anyway, make comments as you choose. Thank you. And then we'll end the
thank
program.
you.
Go ahead, Mehmet.
Yeah, thank you, Raj. I'll be brief. But when we say
I can't hear
client
you.
state,
Have you started speaking?
no. Yeah. Can you hear me now? No. You were cutting off too.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Yeah.
To me, you're breaking up. I don't know about others. Yeah.
Yeah, you were breaking up too. So I'll be very brief. Being a client state does not mean officially being under the orders, although that may happen too. But your business relationships, like you were saying, building infrastructure. The minute you start building infrastructure using the Western technology, somebody else's technology, you know what? You are dependent. That is finished, dependent. Once you are dependent, maybe through markets, maybe through production, maybe through technology, maybe through some other means, but you are integrated into a hierarchical imperialist structure. Finished, you are dependent. That is the nature of comprador bourgeoisie. They sell out their countries, yes, but for what? Their class interest, which is the class interest of what's called so-called national bourgeoisie. National bourgeoisie was different 150 years ago. Of course, they were different. Yeah, they wanted to rule their own. And they, if they were going to make shoes, they would have knives made by the neighbor and so on and so forth. But now, just try, try building television sets without the Western technology. Turkey is the #1 country that sells television sets to Europe. Number one, nobody else. But can they do television? But can they do television? They can't. So if Philips.
But let me challenge you. China got the Western technology to do all that and develop capitalism under its own brand. And now because of CPC, so the state makes a difference, right?
It does, but so if you're going to stay, in the capitalist road, you give me the example of China. Would you say that Chinese Communist Party did exactly what Pakistan or Honduras or Turkey?
I'm saying that your theory actually doesn't apply to China, where Chinese did use it. Yeah, but so therefore your theory that saying once you use that, then you are totally become corporate, or it's not true.
I should have qualified it as being capitalist. Yes, you're in the capitalist world.
There is a way of developing capitalism using technology from other countries. Like, you think
if you do revolution, if you can
Well,
bring it
no, it's
to
not
do it like
revolution.
China, yes.
It depends on how the state is organized. If the capitalist class is unified enough and they organize through the state a resistance, they can do it. That's my
Why
point.
should they, Raj? Why should they? Their
No,
class interest doesn't
because-
call for that.
No,
Their
there's
class interest.
No, hear me out. The class interest of the bourgeoisie of any country clashes with the class interest of imperial bourgeoisie.
150 years ago, yes, 150 years
it
ago.
does today.
It doesn't.
Today.
No,
It does today.
no.
It
I
does,
mean,
it does everywhere. It does everywhere.
No,
Anyway,
I disagree.
okay, we part disagreeing but agreeing to disagree.
Right.
How about that?
Right.
Okay.
No, good comments, Raj. Good comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
So at this point, I should stop the recording, and we'll continue the discussion between you and me elsewhere.
All right.
So,
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you next week then.
Wait a minute. Save the damn chat.
Well, okay.
Save the
Oh,
chat.
yeah.
Save the chat.
Yeah, okay, go ahead. Who's going to save the chat? I think that's Norma does that. Norma, go ahead, please.
Well, we all do that.
I have the chat if
Okay.
people
Me
want
too.
to ask me for it.
Great.
Okay, I'm stopping the recording. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next Sunday.
See you next Sunday. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Institute for the Critical Study of Society at the Nebo Proctor Marxist Library receives no corporate funding, nor do we have any paid staff. We rely on the support of working class folks that share our commitment to the socialist legacy of Karl Marx. We continue to need funds to meet necessary expenses. Since we can no longer pass the hat at our in-person forums, please send contributions to our treasurer, either online via PayPal or by check. The PayPal ID is ICSS Sunday, SUNDAY, at yahoo.com, and the name is Richard Fallenbaum. And checks may be made out to Richard Fallenbaum and sent to him at 1225 Nielsen Street, Berkeley, California, 94706. Fallenbaum is spelled Fallenbaum. To donate directly to the Marxist Library, send a check to the Nebo Proctor Marxist Library at 6501 Telegraph Avenue, Oakland, California, 94609, or directly or donate online at www.paypal.me/npml. For information, write to npml at marxistlibr.org, and the website is marxistlibr.org.